Well, this is different, isn't it? Welcome back to the TNC Podcast, everyone. It's Jack Reeve, it's Chris Reeve for our second recording of the day. You didn't get to see the first one 12 hours after the first recording of the TNC Podcast on this sunny Tuesday in April. We are back to film an emergency episode. I think this is our first ever emergency episode of the TNC Podcast. So welcome along to everyone. I hope you're well. I hope you're trying to digest the news that surfaced out of Norwich City today. It's remarkable, really. We were filming this morning, and we were trying to plan for next season and talking about how Johannes Hoff Thorup potentially turns this around. I think all talk that Johannes might be sacked was kind of kiboshed and nonsense. And here we are at 7:08 p.m. on the 22nd of April discussing the sacking of Johannes Hoff Thorup. Welcome along, everyone. Feel free to drop some comments in the live chat, but we're probably going to talk amongst ourselves for the most part because I think we're both trying to process the news. Chris mentioned earlier last week, he said, I think we should prepare potentially for the sacking of Johannes Hoff Thorup. But I said, mate, don't be silly. It's not going to happen. He's not getting sacked. Stand down. Don't worry about that. That is a concern for next season, potentially. Mm-hmm. And right. It's happened. You were right. I mean, what a remarkable day.
And that is a lesson in life, Jack. You know, if you prepare to fail, if you fail to prepare, then you should prepare to fail. Indeed. Yeah, I'm shocked but not surprised. It's just one of those wacky days where everything's gone out the window. As I said in our breaking TNC Live when it first came out earlier on today, I was told definitively 3 minutes before the news went live that Johannes was no more at Norwich City Football Club. And it's just, it's really, really interesting. I'll be honest with you, not much that's come my way since it's broke. I think now, people inside the football club will be kind of maybe batting down the hatches a wee bit and just kind of gathering things and, probably also just getting used to the news themselves that Johannes isn't here. As I said earlier on, Jack, I was told literally after Pompey, I asked the question, I said, is there any chance if we lose the next two, Johannes could potentially lose his job? And the response I had was no. And it was a hard no as well, might I add. So,
and not really an unexpected no. I was
something's not right. I'm not just saying this to provoke an action, a response to, generate, any sort of engagement here. Something is not right, Jack. I mean, even the funny thing is the Yanks, the Atenasios, Norfolk Holdings Group, they literally hosted Johannes on a tour of Milwaukee, didn't they? Just fairly recently. Mike is standing there arm in arm with Johannes, and then he's gone.
It's really strange.
It's just so fast moving, isn't it?
It's really strange. Look, we'll discuss it throughout the next hour or so. Please do lock yourselves into the TNC podcast and make yourself a cup of tea or port. We should have had a Lakens, really, shouldn't we? Maybe we can get one of those later. But look, this feels very strange. I think let's get the kind of emotion side out first. I'm really disappointed. I wanted this to work desperately for Johannes, for Glenn Riddleston, for Jack Wilshere. I thought that this was the start of something really special. I thought that we were kind of strapped in for the long term with these guys. I was excited about Johannes when he came into the picture. I was continued to be excited about what he was building at Norwich City up until the last kind of month. And even then, it was like it felt as if there were reasons why it had gone slightly off rails that was kind of out of Johannes's control to some extent. I really didn't see this coming. I think, we've probably covered here on TNC, I don't know, maybe 5 managerial sackings. We've had Farker, Alex Neil, Dean Smith, go back to Chris Wagner. with every single one of those managerial sackings that we've had over the past decade, it's been expected, and actually it's probably been overdue.
Yeah, I agree.
And maybe I'm just slightly sentimental, and maybe it's taking a bit of time for me to come around to this new era at Norwich City where Norfolk's Holdings Group, led by Mark Atanasio, will be more cutthroat. They've invested significant money and they will be expecting results. It just feels incredibly kind of out of the blue. It's been this constant transition, patience project. And then after a month of bad results, bang, gone.
Yeah, I was on Radio Norfolk earlier actually, and I was asked the same question, about the manner in which he's gone, and what do you think of it? And I can't help but think, I actually think it reflects well on Ben Knapper, a man that's come under scrutiny naturally, given his position in certain points of the season. And actually, I think I'm more confident now because it shows his decisiveness. It shows he's not willing to, skirt out of a big decision. He's willing to make those big, difficult decisions. And let's face it, in difficult moments, Jack, he could have done it in the off season, but he's done it with 2 games to go still. And people say, but they're dead rubber, etc. Well, hang on a minute. All of his coaching staff and the staff are in and amongst the place. The players are still there. I think fair play to Ben Knapper for making the decision when he did. I'm the same as you, Jack. I desperately wanted the project to work. I really thought they were going to give him next season,
or at least a portion of next season.
And I do feel sorry for Johannes. Maybe we'll get onto that later on in our conversation, Jack. But I think for the time being, at the minute, I'm obviously a bit like, woof, blimey, okay. I'm not really surprised though, given the form. West Brom have sacked their manager of late, and hey, maybe this is the time that Norwich City turn the corner and we become a club that isn't going to go overdue when managers are over. There must be something going on behind the scenes as to why that decision changed literally within the space of 3 days. There must be something that's gone on.
I thought the really interesting moment, and look, I found today fascinating. I was listening to the Pinken podcast on the way to hear Chris, and that was recorded post Portsmouth, so before the Millwall game. And Paddy was going like, any talk of Johannes being sacked is complete nonsense. And like, this isn't me digging Paddy out. I would have said the exact same thing. I think anyone involved, fans or people involved, you have good relationships with most people at the football club. This really did come out of nowhere. This wasn't expected. I think the consensus was Johannes Hoff Thorup will be given 10 games next season. He will be given another summer transfer window alongside Ben Knapper, and then we'll see where we get to. It might be that he's sacked. I think we were all, what we said on the podcast that we filmed this morning before the news was he needs a quick start. Any kind of buy-in from fans, any patience that he built up with fans had been lost over the course of the past month. I thought the really telling moment, and maybe these things become slightly more prevalent now that we know the news and how it's developed. That interview post Portsmouth, where Chris Gorham asked the question, have you read the comments from Zoe Webber in today's programme saying this season has been a failing? You have failed to meet the targets set out by the football club of top 6. And he kind of acted like he didn't think that was the target. He didn't know what the target was. And actually, when I go back and I think back through the course of this season, it has felt somewhat cluttered. Like, what was the target? I was hearing some people say top 6. I'm hearing some people say, well, it's a transition. What do we expect?
Season, but then it was like 3 or 4 years transition. And when that comment was a big moment, Jack.
It was a huge moment. That for me showed that there was a disconnect between upper brass at Norwich City
and Johannes. I was doing Canary Call that day, and Chris Gorham had just come up the gantry again to the top. And we played that piece for the first time. And me and Rob, we were sitting next to each other like this, Jack. And you obviously can't see us because it was radio. And as soon as there was a pause, me and Rob went like that. And we looked at each other as if to say, shit, like that was a big pause. Yeah. It was a moment of, oh blimey, they're not on the same hymn sheet.
Well, and for me, if I'm Johannes in that situation, I'm going, hang on, guys, have you got my back here?
Yeah.
Like, are you saying I failed when I didn't really know? Like that.
Yeah.
That for me was the moment where I went, oh, that doesn't feel quite
I want
right.
to touch upon something, Jack, before you steer it in another direction, actually, is you mentioned next season, right? And there's been talk about the why now. And I think I don't know, maybe some people will disagree in the comments, and hey, please do feel free to let's get in all of your comments, and we'll go through them maybe towards the end of the conversation, Jack. We'll have a Q&A session. Whatever happened this season, regardless of the results, the one thing that we have always agreed on, which is a rarity for you and I, Jack, is that it's important that we have an instant, fast start to next season. You know, we've had our year of learning, of transitioning, of the project starting, all of those buzzwords that people hate. Next season, we needed a fast start. I think Ben Knapper looked at the data, which was glaringly obvious, which was not only the performances, there's a lot of squidgy stuff in there, but the hard black and white results. 1 win in 10 games. It's going to be 1 win in 12 games by the end of the season. That is unacceptable. And does that look like a head coach that will have a fast, instant, off-the-mark start next season? No. And a club of our size, shape, stature should be having a fast start to next season after we've had this year of transitioning. Now, the challenge is, of course, and this is, another add-on to this, is we're essentially now having transitioned in from a playoff team to a mid-table team to now we're going to end up potentially, and I'm sorry to say it, 1 point above the relegation zone by the end of this season, depending on results and depending on our results. I hope that's not the case, of course. So we are now going to have another, sorry to break the news, folks, transition season because of this decision. So it's an almighty task for Ben Knapper and the Norwich City hierarchy in this summer to sort this shit out, to get the ship shape ready to sail again and back into the playoffs, because it has been like, let's be honest, Jack, it's been like Titanic since that Blackburn game. We're watching Titanic. We know it's going to sink. We know it's going to sink. We've seen the iceberg. We've seen the iceberg. Bosh, under the water.
I keep harping back, and it's kind of pointless because none of you are going to see it, but the podcast we filmed this morning,
it was ranty.
It was one of the best we've ever filmed.
And we need to make a point of getting some criticism towards the players on this, because we spent a good half an hour criticising the players. So we will do that in this conversation.
We'll try and get through it. But what I was going to say was, like, I was still very much a Johannes believer, and I thought he was going to be given the time, and I thought Ben Knapper and co would give him the time, thought he'd be given another transfer window, and I thought that for whatever reason it would work. But those that were saying he's got to go, this isn't working, I also empathise with that, because I didn't have any justification to say, this is suddenly going to get better. There was no proof. We were regressing. We were no better from point A of this season, being Oxford away when we got battered, to now when we've just been thumped by Portsmouth and Millwall, two pretty average championship teams. So, and actually now the excuses of discipline and injuries, you can throw that out of the window. It's basically a fully fit 11. Ultimately, I think Johannes has been,
for a large patch.
Ultimately, Johannes has been sacked because for a quarter of this season, which it has been the last 15 games, Norwich City's form has been that of a relegation batting side. Yes. They are the worst team in the division since March the 1st, when Norwich City were 1 point from the playoff. I just can't believe, it's staggering how quickly this has changed. I saw earlier a video of that away end at Vicarage Road on February the 2nd. I was there. We'd just beaten Watford 2-0. We'd moved within 2 points of the top 6. We had a run of home games after that. Derby, Oxford, Preston, or Derby, Preston, Oxford, whichever way it was. In my mind, walking away from Vicarage Road on February the 2nd, I'm going, okay, win the next 3, which we should have done. We're in the playoffs. I would have never have predicted that 2 months, not even 2 months later, we would be in a situation where we're staring the bottom 3 in the face and our manager has been sacked. That is a remarkable and staggering decline in form and faith and mood.
Was this inevitable? I'm putting a different twist on this. Maybe, I don't know. Because we don't know the facts yet. We haven't really heard anything else apart from the news, apart from that press release. We haven't heard any whisperings behind the scenes either yet. There might be some coming through whilst we're on live. Maybe this is a case, Jack, of the previous regime went boom or bust on certain players. But in terms of their contracts, in terms of who they were, in terms of the lengths, and I don't know, I'm clutching at straws over here. Was this always destined to happen? Meaning, were we always either going to get into the playoffs with this group, or was it bust, which is they're going to be mentally checked out onto the next paycheck with some other club that will pay their wages? I don't know. Who knows?
Well, I think the thing for me, Chris,
because the players need criticising, Jack.
Well,
because Johannes isn't the. Johannes will now be the fall guy, right? And I think it would be easy for Norwich fans to go, yeah, good, Johannes has gone out the door. Bloody hell. You look at the state of this squad. And this is where I do feel sorry for Johannes, actually. And I think we need to be very respectful about the cards that he was dealt in the time that he had. Yes, there was a sustained patch. You've called it a quarter of the season, where you and I were on the podcast thinking, well, that's winnable. That's a winnable home game. 3 back-to-back against the dog shit of the league, as I famously said, and they are, and they still are, which says, well, what are we? If they're dog shit, what are we? Anyway, you get my point. I think there was a patch, but on the whole, they had some tough cards to play, and I do think the squad should have done a lot better than they had.
So I think there's two ways I'm looking at this, and people can depending on which side they sit, can go either way. I think there's 2 arguments for that squad argument. Argument 1 is that actually the squad's pretty good. You've got the second top scorer and the third top scorer in the division. You've got arguably, I don't know, off the top of my head, 25 million quid's worth of talent that we bought over the summer in Ante Sinat, in Ante Jurasek, in Forsen Manquart, etc., etc. You've got 2 Manchester City youngsters in Callum Doyle and Jacob Wright. Actually, for championship standards, it's a pretty good squad. Yeah. The other side of the argument is, and we discussed it on the infamous podcast that you now won't see, was the likes of Shane Duffy, Jakob Sorensen. And we can single players out. I thought Shane Duffy's recent performances were shameful. I was starting to see a fragmented squad. And why that's happened so suddenly, I don't know. I suspect for some of them, it's because they know they're not going to be around next season. And that's what kind of surprised me about this sacking is, I think a lot of the recent, the massive dip in form, and I think a lot of that is a mentality thing. And Johannes said it in his post-match interview, I think it was against Millwall, that he doesn't think his players are motivated. Well, that's a huge concern.
Maybe that was, and maybe that was the moment. Maybe that was the moment when they heard Johannes say that. Maybe that was the moment they went, because it's your job to motivate.
But for me, I'm looking at that and going, well, and we went through it earlier, Chris, I think half of the team that started on Monday won't be here next season.
Yes.
So, like,
the culture,
where does the blame lie? I don't know.
Well, it's not. But this is the thing. It's him. It's him, and it's him only. This is my point. I think collectively, as a club this season, we have not just fallen short or not hit our target. We have miserably failed.
But did Johannes know that top 6 was the target?
Surely he must have known that was. Surely, Jack.
But because he's saying in press conferences, Paddy Davitt asked him,
going back,
he said, "Would you accept a promotion in 3 seasons?"
Yeah.
For me, I don't think Johannes thought that the aim this season was top 6. The way that he responded to the question posed by Chris Gore, the way he responded to Paddy Davitt.
We are hypothesising. We are guessing. We're trying to do 1 + 1 = 2 here, Jack. There's a lot of things that we don't know. I think in a week, in a couple of weeks, we'll know a lot more about why this decision was made. Maybe we won't ever know why this decision was made. I think we will when we interview players at some stage about this era. But look, I think on the whole, as I say, collectively, everyone needs to now look in the mirror and have a good look at themselves and think, have I really done my bit? Have I really done my bit? It's cost Johannes and Glenn their jobs. It'll be really interesting to see if Jack Wilshere will keep his job. beyond this tenure. Nick Stanley, another one. He's now had a promotion up to assistant head coach. So that's going to be interesting. And this is the thing now, Jack. A new coach comes. It's almost, we could be starting from scratch again, because a new head coach comes. They're not going to want. Are they? Well, okay, hang on. They might still want Jack Wilshere and Nick Stanley. They might, or they might go, no, I want my boys. I'm a serious manager. I want my boys with me. Do you know what I mean by that?
100%.
And then you're back to square bloody one again.
Well, and you're just touching on the coaches. I'm looking at this. If I'm a Michael Forson, if I'm Mate Jurisic, if I'm Ante Sirnats, I'm going, oh my goodness, like the guy that brought me in and the guy that was nurturing me.
Yeah.
Is the next head coach going to want me?
Yeah.
And I think the recruitment now changes a little bit as well.
But you could say that about Sargent. Daniel Farker pushed for him. Daniel Farker got his man. Daniel Farker was then sacked.
Sure.
Josh Sargent's ended up okay in the end. I think that could actually motivate some of those boys. Okay. And actually,
I like that
your mate isn't here anymore. You stand up by your own 2 feet, and you play for the badge in the front of the shirt, Sonny Jim. This is Norwich City, not some piddly club in Denmark.
Piddly club in Denmark. Well, Johannes Hoff Thorup, I think he speaks a brilliant game, and I like him, and I think he'll go on to good things.
Me too.
It would be fascinating to speak to him now and see like how he reacts to this time at Norwich City, what he'd change. I'm going to chuck something into the room, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. I think that he will look back with slight regret over the disciplining of certain players. I'm looking at Jose Cordova and I'm looking at Shane Duffy that came public.
Wow, that's interesting. That's interesting.
I think if I'm a player, I'm putting myself in a senior player's shoes right now. So I'm Jose Cordova. I'm new to the country. I've had a good start to the season. I've turned up. What did he turn up late to the briefing or something?
Yeah,
he's been kicked out of the matchday squad and outed publicly. I'm reacting to that.
Good.
I'm reacting to that and going, fuck you. You have my back.
Yeah.
You're a 35-year-old who's managed in Denmark, now coming over to a championship team, trying to boss me about. I think that backfires. And if I'm a Kenny McLean,
we
talking to a Shane Duffy, I'm going, who's this guy? Who's this guy? Easy with hindsight. And actually, at the time, I thought he handled it well. But I would be interested to know how he reacts.
Yes,
with hindsight.
I agree. I think that there have been times where you could maybe be like, that's a young manager there, maybe. You go back to, not motivating players and why are players not running through walls? And even though we're on the beach, why are you not playing for the pride on the front of the shirt? And there's a word aura that gets flung around by youngsters these days, but I think it's really true. I think it's so important for your manager to have an aura, one of respect. I was listening to the Russell Martin Restless Football podcast with Gary Lineker actually earlier, and he spoke about how he was scared of Paul Lambert, but he was also in love with him. Like he loved him. He loved Paul Lambert, but he was kind of scared of him.
Which is a good relationship.
And I think that's something that was clearly lacking, is perhaps that respect. The man management piece, Jack, is I think a fair point. I think you could and should, and it's fair to bring up that, was his man management there? I'm not 100% sure, especially with the senior group. But hey, look, we've seen this before. Daniel Farker, he that can do no wrong. He was the man that completely screwed up Christoph Solis's career because he outed him publicly after he wanted to score a penalty against Bournemouth.
But Chris, the reason he got away with that was because he had 2 championship titles. That's the difference.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's the difference.
I'll take that on board. But no, I'm actually agreeing with you here, Jack. I think your point is fair. And Shane Duffy as well, by the way. If you remember that Oxford game, the reason why they scored, it was from a horrifically Brexit football long throw into the Barclay end, and literally the gap that Shane Duffy left was where it went in.
I think the other thing to know about when you've spoken and we've spoken to past players on the podcast, there's often a kind of a message sent that I get from players. Like there's always certain points in a season where something goes amiss, a player misbehaves, something goes awry in the dressing room, and actually that isn't dealt with by the head coach. It's dealt with by a captain. It's dealt with by a senior player. I think back to, we had, it was, oh my goodness, Ricky Martin on the podcast, and he was saying a couple of moments where
I remember
things had gone slightly wrong in the dressing room, and like someone stepped in, a player stepped in and said, "You know what? That's not right."
Yeah.
I don't think Johannes had those senior leaders within the dressing room that could have done that.
Well, partly because they left. Ashley Barnes and Grant Hanley, a very unsexy answer for Norwich fans to hear, but that is partly the truth, and Norwich players would agree with me that they were both two massive leaders.
And look, I agree with you.
I also think
you do need to shift these on, don't you?
No, I agree. But the problem is, Jack, there's a period where you're then left without them. And I think Norwich City do need a new, I think they call it their leadership group, don't they? I think Norwich City do need a new leadership group. I mean, even people are saying, you know, oh, Josh Sargent and Shane Duffy are leaders. I'm not sure they are. No. They're not, you know, grabbing you up by the scruff of the neck. I mean, we've had, you know, the leaders we've had in the past. I'm talking Grant Holt. I'm talking Russell Martin. I'm talking Tim Krul. I'm talking John Ruddy. I'm talking about Malky Mackay. I'm talking about Bradley Johnson. I'm talking about players that will get you up by the scruff of the neck in the changing room and will scream in your face. And that is a very unsexy thing to say. And that's maybe not, you know, the modern way that people think. You know, sometimes you need a bit of that old school approach. And personally, I can suspect that that's not been the case in this Johannes Hoff Thorup era. We need a big turnover of squad. We need a lot of players out the door. But I do think that, you know, to now, you know, go into the reasons as why Johannes has been sacked, Jack, I do think it's fair because the results and the performances, like at the start, we were saying, well, you know, the performances are all right. You know, we're getting by. We were getting results, but when it's results and performances and over a sustained period of time, not at this football club.
You mentioned Ben Knapper there, and I think we started this emergency podcast touching on Ben Knapper, and you said that, you know, you were impressed with the way that he's dealt quickly, and I suspect that's partly Zoe Webber and partly Norfolk Holdings Group, and that's a collective decision to sack the head coach. I'm seeing it. I think there's real pressure on Ben Knapper now. I think there's pressure to get this right. It's a huge summer ahead in terms of recruitment.
Huge.
That was the case before this sacking.
Yes.
But to flip it slightly, I'm going, okay, so Ben Knapper has almost admitted defeat here. He's gone, my man was wrong. The man that I brought in, and it was a risk, and I brought in an unknown, a young up-and-coming manager. And look, I liked it. I wanted it to work. I liked that direction of travel rather than a Dean Smith type.
With you.
But if we're boiling it down, this appointment has failed. We have regressed as a football club.
Yes.
So there is pressure now on Ben Knapper.
Huge pressure, Jack. There's huge pressure. I would, though, say, Jack, there's been... I don't really think that pressure has changed. I think there's always been a huge amount of pressure on Ben Knapper. I mean, if you remember when Ben Knapper came in the door, people were criticising him before he could even do anything because Stuart Webber was still here. So Ben Knapper will be used to a lot of scrutiny, a lot of criticism. Of course, that increases this summer. There's so much work to do, and I wish Ben the best of luck trying to achieve it all. I'll be very, very impressed, certainly. Look, the pressure is on. We need to make some big, bold, brave calls. We need to make decisions that aren't necessarily safe, which sounds quite kamikaze, but I think you could easily just, you know, keep players a little bit longer. But actually, I think we're at the point now where I've said this on the podcast before, I'll say it again. I think we need a League One style recruitment window where we signed, it was either 8, 10 or 12 players, but anyway, it was a lot of players. We need to sign that many players. We really do.
And also sell that many.
Because, forgive me. Because the culture was laid bare for all to see at Millwall away. And I won't name names now. I got a bit of stick for that on social media, so I won't name names now. But you can look at the picture and you can see it.
SACKED Johnson.
You know, there's players there with their hands in their pockets. There's players there with their arms folded. There's players there with their hands behind their back. There's players.
You've got your arms folded.
There's players that are practically down the tunnel. And they're not. They don't even have the decency to go. That's all it takes. just a little clap for the fans that travel across the country, that spend their hard-earned money watching your shower of shit every week. How dare you? And that speaks volumes about the culture of the squad. There is a disdain, there is a gap, there is not a togetherness. There is no togetherness, and there has to be root and branch change to change that. And sorry, I'm on my high horse now, Jack. Sorry, I got some criticism for this on social media actually about, oh, you're so entitled, Chris. You're not. No, I'm not entitled. I'm just wanting basic manners. I'm wanting basic manners, right? And people then say, well, what would you do if you got loads of abuse, Chris? Well, hang on a minute. Let's really, really strongly consider this, okay? Jakobsson, for example, he's not getting abused by every single Norwich fan in that away end, is he? The majority of Norwich fans want him to do well, will clap him off even if he has a bad game.
Well, I think
that just speaks volumes.
I think the only way for the working man to make a kind of comparison is it would be the equivalent of going to work, underperforming for a long period of time, your boss pulling you into the office going, Chris, I'm disappointed with your performance levels. We're paying you really well. Like, are you going to change? You just going, fuck off, mate. I don't care. Isn't it really?
Yeah. I can't disagree with that. Yeah,
that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Look, let's move this conversation along. I really appreciate all of the comments. We've got loads of content coming on TNC. This is really big news, and it's going to be a real huge summer of content and lots going in at Norwich City. This wasn't part of the script for this summer. So there's going to be a lot of reaction. There'll be lots of content coming this week. Everyone now will be talking about who's next. Who's the next head coach? Yeah. We know for the time being.
Let's talk about it.
Jack Wilshere will take charge, I assume, for the last 2 games, or certainly for the coming days' training sessions, alongside Nick Stanley. We are now in a position where Nick Stanley is assistant kind of head coach, but we'll leave that one for another day. Welcome to all of the new Norwich City fans whose first club is Arsenal, because they now all hate Ipswich Town and love Norwich City, which is great. Welcome along.
Yeah.
The odds, and look, never read into the bookies' odds for managerial markets. The markets are so small that prices move if you chuck a couple of quid on. But there are a couple of obvious names at the top.
Okay.
The favourite being Mr. Russell Martin, which is, look, we knew at some stage that Russell Martin would be linked with Norwich City. I didn't think it would be this soon. He got Southampton promoted into the Premier League. He didn't keep them up. Not just on him. He got sacked earlier on in the season. He's been without a job since. He's of course previously managed MK Dons and Swansea in the EFL, and on the most part done a really good job at everywhere he's been. Of course, I'm going to call him a Norwich City legend. I don't think that's a particularly outrageous thing to say. What I would say, Chris, with Russ, is it feels like people's memories are slightly short term. Russ, I think he's a brilliant man and a leader and did wonderful things at Norwich City, but left under a bit of a dark cloud during that Daniel Farke period. We were at the Den together when he was booed off.
What is it about Millwall away? There's always something about it, isn't there?
And we always said, I think everyone has said, like, I think the patience would be incredibly thin for Russell Martin. I don't think he'd get the benefit of the doubt.
No, I don't either.
And that concerns me. Look, I think it makes sense. Former Norwich City player, likes the style. Players that have been recruited for Johannes would fit into the way that Russ plays, but it's a serious risk. Any manager we get now in will be a risk. Russ has EFL experience. Russ has gained promotion from the Championship. That's something that Johannes certainly didn't have.
Yes.
Look, the romantic in me says, "Oh boy, this would be an awesome bit of business." I would love to see Russ in the dugout, but it also worries me.
We're on the same hymn sheet, right? Because I'm like you. There is nothing more that gets me going than thinking about Russ Martin going up to the Barclay and giving it the big one, right? Especially after the pain, the heartache.
Talk about a redemption.
It would be epic, but it does feel like all chips on red. And there's always this thing of, when you bring someone back after, having been a legend for your football club, having won trophies, he lifted the trophy. But people forget this, right? Russ Martin lifted the trophy at Wembley, captained that famous side that won at Wembley, has played so many games for us. It would be epic, but if it feels too close to home for me, Jack, I'd be a bit too nervous if Russ got it. But in terms of style, if you don't want a complete chalk and cheese, scrap it and start again,
which I don't think we can do,
Russ would be a candidate.
You mentioned earlier that podcast that he went on, The Rest is Football, with Gary Lineker. There wasn't any love lost between him and Norwich City. He didn't leave him.
Well, I don't know about. I
don't think. I think people are just assuming that Russ is just going to chuck himself in.
And this is important.
Please have me. And I don't think that's the case.
Oh God, absolutely. I mean, if anything, I think that Russ would probably see himself above Norwich City now, considering what he achieved with Southampton, and considering the resources that he had there in the Championship, and where Norwich City are now. Yes, it is a 1 + 1 = 2. He's out of work, and we need a manager. But I'm not sure. And I'd just like to reiterate, folks, I have done my bit on this. I said this in the breaking news TNC podcast about this. I have messaged Russell. I never called him Russell. I've messaged Russell.
What do you call a man with a bag?
I said to him, "What? Go on,
Russell."
Oh, that's terrible.
What do you call a man with a bird on his head?
What?
Cliff.
Jesus. Please win a football match, Norwich. Anyway, I said to Russ, "Hello, mate. Any conversation started with Norwich yet?"
Oh, friends.
But he's not replied yet. So let's see.
Maybe he's getting interviewed.
Here we go.
Look, I think the thing with Russ, and I'm 17 steps ahead here. Everyone was criticising him like anything because he couldn't. He refused to go away from his philosophy with Southampton in the Premier League. Look, I've got this impending doom about me as a football fan now that there is literally no point in getting promoted.
Oh, you're so boring.
Yeah, but it is, isn't it?
Yeah, but what's the point then?
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm asking. I don't know.
Just turn this off. Turn this off.
What is the point?
Turn this off. There's no point. Shut down Talk Norwich City. Why are you here now talking about this?
People rejoice at home.
Well, where are you? Where's your passion gone? You're part of the problem. The culture of these players has impacted on you. What's the point? What's the point?
Well,
Pride. What's the point? Fly the flag for Norwich, for Norfolk, for our county, for our families that have got nothing else to do in the region.
I'm looking at root and branch change at Premier League level. Let's
scrap
off the top 6.
Yeah, but you're not in
Go
control
to
of
the
that.
Super League.
You're not in control of that.
I might be though.
You're never.
That's a dream.
You can't change that, but what you can change is your behaviours, your attitudes, and your outcomes through pride, passion, and belief. And that's what the new manager needs to inject into this.
Turn into a coach.
Other managers,
yes,
in the running.
Cesc Fabregas.
Fabregas is an outsider shout. I think we've seen Cooper, haven't we?
Yeah, let me run through.
That's left field.
Let me run through the top 6 in the
Jack Wilshere.
Russ Martin, Gary O'Neill.
We've got O'Neill.
No, not having O'Neill because of that night in Stoke.
I just don't think you'll understand.
Liam Rosenior.
Hang on. Gary O'Neill. Interest? Passion?
Yeah.
Tick.
Did a good job at Wolves.
Passion? Tick. Premier League? Tick. Are we ticking that? Managing the Premier League?
We'll tick that. Yeah, we'll tick that. Speeding fines on the A47.
Speeding fines on the A47. Tick. Better than Zidane. Tick. We've got Gary O'Neill.
Awful challenges at Stoke.
I think I'd be all right. Am I all right with Gary O'Neill? Am I all right?
I'm not having him above Russell Martin.
I don't know, but I feel slightly less emotional about Gary.
Rosenior, hello.
Are you interested in Liam?
Yeah.
I don't know about Liam.
Could you imagine?
For me, there's not enough passion.
Look, this script has been ripped up and started again today. So let me write a new script for you, right? Russ Martin comes back in. First signing.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Johnny Rowe.
Oh, no, that's not the... What? I don't know. No,
Johnny Rowe, let's have a go.
Mate, I don't know where this narrative has come from. Johnny Rowe's not coming back.
Yeah, but imagine if
Johnny Rowe...
have some fun.
Johnny Rowe, listen, have some fun. You're saying there's no point trying to get into the Premier League, you loser. Johnny Rowe turned his back on this football club and the supporters that backed him up and down this country by not being asked at
Everyone
Oxford
deserves
away.
a second chance, Chris.
I don't know, Jack.
Johnny.
I need to. I hope to hear from Johnny one day that he hugely regrets his actions and that he wishes he hadn't done it. But I've yet to feel that remorse. And so until then, for me, the line in the sand is done.
Maybe you were right all along, and we should have got Frank Lampard. Look at the job he's doing at Coventry. Maybe we all laugh, but you were right.
Can I just really make this point really clear? That day on Sky Sports News, okay, just to remind you, Jack, now we're talking about manager changes, right? So I get a call from, I don't even know how they got my number, by the way. Anyway, so they called me saying, can you come on to talk about Frank Lampard? And at the point, I'd been tipped off that he had been interviewed in Dubai. Stuart Webber had gone out to Dubai to interview Frank Lampard, right?
Right.
At that point, I'm thinking, hello, if you're being wined and dined up the Burj Khalifa,
Blimey, yeah,
up the Burj Khalifa,
up the Burj.
If you're going up the Burj Khalifa, then that can only mean one thing. Anyway, so I thought, yeah, all right, I'll get behind this. Frank Lampard, a bit of passion. He would have rallied the troops.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he would have been worth more than Delia Smith.
They then came out saying he rejected us, which I'm not entirely sure is true. And then I was on talking about Dean Smith being the Messiah after
Where was he whining and dining Dean Smith then?
I don't know.
At Beast and Bump?
Yeah, probably somewhere really shit, wasn't it? Like, what have they even got in Birmingham?
Let us know who you'd like to... Don't let us know about Dean Smith. Let us know who you'd like to bring.
Yeah.
Let's bring in some comments. Actually,
yeah, come on.
You've heard enough from us. Dubai Canary, there you go.
Oh,
Talking about Dubai. Pelak.
No.
Did you see what he did at Stoke?
No.
And Jack Wilshere.
I'm afraid to say he copies people's homework.
Big moment for Jack Wilshere because the narrative so far has been like, what's he done? And I think that's a pretty fair narrative because I don't know what he's done.
Well, I'll tell you what he's done. He's been so successful with Arsenal's under 18s.
No, I'm talking about Norwich City.
All right. Well, what is he doing? All right, we'll clarify that then.
Well, it's not talk Arsenal, is it? I'm not on AFTV.
You really want to fight with me tonight, don't you? We might end up breaking this council.
But who knows? The next full-time head coach may well be Jack Wilshere.
It could be Jack Wilshere.
Welcome along, Arsenal fans. Maybe this is part of the Atanasio commercial plan.
Right.
Become Arsenal rejects.
We're not even so. Just speaking.
Prego.
What's he saying?
If Rowe came back, everyone would forget what happened before very quickly.
Depends if he hits the ground running, Craigo.
Sean Dyche. Tractor Boy James.
Well, we know why you put that then, don't we?
Sean Dyche, Premier League experience. Certainly
Sean Dyche is not coming to Norwich City FC, meandering around the relegation zone of the Championship. Would it get me going, though? It wouldn't. I don't know. It kind of would. It would annoy all the right people. Getting Dyche would annoy all the right people. So that would I would enjoy that a little bit.
It would certainly go. I put it this way. I don't think a Mankwa Forsen would be playing like Sean Dyche. Knutson, it's not going to be him. It's definitely not.
Why not? Why is it not going to be Knutson?
We're a relegation form championship team.
Danny
Roll.
What about this, by the way?
Danny Roll.
Stevie G. Danny Roll is not coming here. Danny Roll is not coming.
Stevie G.
Right, clip this up, right? If Danny Roll comes here, right, 250 quid to Big C.
Danny Roll. After you saying that, Danny Roll is coming.
He's not coming to Norwich. We do not have the pull for Danny Roll.
And please.
Maybe we do.
No more.
Go on. Atanasio's listening to this across the pond. I know you are because I might have spoken to one today. Danny Roll, let's see what you've got in the transfer kitty.
No more Narcissus Pelak comments, please.
You have fallen for the marketing, PR, social media nonsense.
I know we're bottom of the form guide since March, but come on. Knutson, Tete as assistant. It's me, Tete.
I tell you what. Go back, get that one up again. NCFC Finley. This is what I like.
We're not getting Knutson.
No, this is what I like.
That
is what I like. It's me, it's Tete. How much?
Gary O'Neill and Tete. Oh. We will just be a team of central defensive midfielders.
And then bring Bradley Johnson. Bring Bradley Johnson back.
Yeah, just an entire team of number sixes.
Bradley Johnson, that's sort of midfield now.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got an idea. Get him on a player manager contract. Yeah.
We've just sorted it. It
Right.
only took us 52
hang on. So who's your head coach?
Gary O'Neill.
So number two, Tete.
Tete.
What's Johnson doing?
He can be Kitnam.
What the hell?
He can be assistant to Pete.
I was going to say you can't sack Pete.
No, he can be assistant. He can learn the ropes of Pete. And then set piece coach.
Seb Basson, motivational speaker.
Set piece coach can be Matt Malky. and
just bring back all the former
players.
players.
And I know for a physio now because I keep seeing his Instagram. Dean Ashton. He's always in the gym.
I tell you what, he's beefed up, isn't he, old Dino?
Yeah.
Yeah, get Dean Ashton back. Wow.
Sorry, for some reason, I don't think we're going to be threatening Ben Hass's job.
Please read through more comments and let's take them seriously, Jack. Okay. I am going insane now because we have wasted a lot of time. We have wasted a lot of time.
Brad says, give Wilshere a run. Can't get any worse. Look, he will be given a run.
Well, there's no choice, Brad. Wilshere or no one. Or Nick Stanley.
Daniel says, would be very happy with Martin O'Neill Cooper. Just no sodding around with an unknown fella from a mad European league. Don't care what the special stats say.
Just a quick pause on this, actually. Someone also commented something like this earlier. They said Martin and then comma O'Neill, and I read it as Martin O'Neill. I thought, bloody hell, he's a bit old now, isn't he? I know he's got experience, but blimey, Ryan.
Super Tommy Tribal, make him assistant.
He's not quite gaffer just yet, although I love Tommy T. People know that.
Look. We will move this conversation along in coming days. I think the key comments: Russ, O'Neill, Pelag.
Surely not.
Quite uninspiring.
That's not happening, by the way.
Let's finish up. We've been on it for 55 minutes. What are your reflections from a crazy last 9 hours?
Well, I don't think I'm over it still, to be honest with you, Jack. I am shocked but not surprised. I think I'm still not the reason why I'm laughing and joking about who's next is I ain't got Scooby-Doo. I don't really think I've got over the fact that they've made this decisive decision at the time that they have. It is really interesting what they're going to do. It's obviously going to take a wee while for them to do it. But they've got a huge opportunity now, They've got an opportunity to get the fans really on board with their next appointment. They've got the opportunity to bring in a manager that would attract a higher caliber of player that's ready to hit the ground running. They've got an opportunity to use the Atenasio's investment to their advantage and, pay a manager a substantial wage to that again is not an up and coming manager, that is perhaps a manager that's already at a level, maybe. Who knows? I don't know. I think, although I feel shocked and surprised and all over the place and knackered and annoyed because we've wasted an hour's worth of ranting about Norwich players earlier today, I do actually feel quite excited, Jack, going into this summer now, because you have a new man at the helm, and you think about the opportunity that could bring for this football club. And I think it's come at my heart. I was trying to self-talk myself into it could work, but actually my heart said I'm not sure it was ever going to work in the long term, and that does upset me because I really did want it to work.
Well, you were on the radio with Chris Gordon this morning, and I was listening in. He said, the sample size of the bad run is big enough now to go, can this be changed? Can it be turned around? And the only thing I had, the only thing I was holding on to in belief that this would turn around and this would work was the fact that with a new squad of players, that could have been possible. And look, we'll never know. And I look back to that. Ultimately, things come down to very fine margins. Who knows what would have happened if we would have beaten Derby County at home, if Jack Stacey hadn't have kicked someone in the head. We might have gone on a run. There were similar moments in that second season under Daniel Farker. I remember going to Portman Road in that second season. I think if he would have lost that game when Max Aarons made his debut, he would have been sacked. We got a very undeserved win that day. Timu Pukki moved in from the left and we went on this incredible run. Fine margins. I will ultimately look back at this albeit very short reign from Johannes Hoff Thorup, with fondness. I enjoyed it. I will. I will. And look, and I believed in it. And
are you okay?
And up until a month ago, I was enjoying it. I look back to Plymouth and Hull and Watford. I had a couple.
You were still enjoying it a month ago.
Yeah, I think so, because I think I was thinking we were doing the right things and moving in the right direction.
Right things.
I think we are.
Mate, your stands are in the toilet.
How
could you have been enjoying this?
I liked the appointment. I liked Johannes.
Me too. Yes,
I thought
me
he was
too.
a good bloke.
Yes, me too.
Hi, we're going out of focus. They want us to go.
You liked it initially. What you're trying to say is you liked it initially, and I'm saying that too. But you pretending that you were enjoying this up to a month ago is a lie. You're not being truthful to yourself, Jack. I stood with you in the Barclay, and I looked at you in the eye as we conceded to Oxford. Oxford. You need to start being truthful with our subscribers, okay?
No, listen.
None of the BS.
Listen.
Come on then.
I was trying to get myself excited, and I was telling myself that this would work. And the thought of it, and Johannes and Glenn and Jack Wilshere at Wembley lifting the trophy, made me excited. I wanted this to work. It didn't work. You don't get everything you want in life.
What about this one? Carlos Cuesta. Up for it? Could it be the time? I'll tell you another one, by the way, in for the running, who was interviewed and was toured around Colney before we hired Johannes.
Right.
Will Still.
Will Still.
Will Still. Would you have a bit of Will Still?
Yeah.
Up the Willie?
Up the Burge? Potentially.
Any interest? Steven Gerrard?
No. God,
what?
no.
Well, let's sprinkle a bit of that in there.
I tell you who's still on the payroll at Norwich City.
Cool.
Daniel Farker. His contract's not run out yet. It was renewed until 2025.
Let's not go there. Ruud van Nistelrooy?
God, guy, you say my standards are in.
It's not my stand. I'm reading out the fans' comment. I'm doing what the people want. All right, I'm reading their comments.
Look, okay. Ask me
Gary Neville.
Ask me who I want as Norwich City manager, because I've got an answer.
Okay. I'm here with Jack Reeve from Talk Norwich City. Jack, you're live on BBC Radio Norfolk now. Who do you want as the new manager, the new head coach of Norwich City Football Club?
Russell Martin.
Wow. Okay.
I'm a romantic.
You're there. You're so in. You're in already.
I want it. I want Russ in.
Well, let's hope you're.
We've said on TNC over the years, and always a little bit of chatter every now and again in the concourse. There will come a time when Russell Martin is linked with the Norwich City job. I thought it would be in 10 years' time when we're in Europe, but it's coming when Norwich City are staring at a 17th place finish down in the Championship.
Interesting.
Come home, Russ. Come home.
Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in to this emergency Talk Norwich City podcast. I would say it's been a joy.
Was this better than this morning's one? Not unreleased?
Well, what I would say is the players should be thanking us, because you have got got away with it, because this morning we went in. We went in, and you're fortunate that Johannes has been sacked. He's been your fall guy. Let's hope that you don't put up another shit show away at Middlesbrough. If not, then we'll be serving it up double as much before we go into the Cardiff game. Talk Norwich City, Jack. Lots of exciting stuff over the summer, as you say. Something really special is coming soon, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's going to be a manic few months, and I'm really excited to cover it. As you say, I wanted it to work for Johannes, but equally I'm really excited / nervous, but I'm going to let excitement override that feeling about what lies ahead for Norwich City. It's certainly never dull following this football club, and look, they've made a big decision today, and let's hope that they know what the answer is going forwards. But we will be across every pulse here on TNC. There'll be plenty of content coming this week as we lead up to Middlesbrough away. Maybe we'll win that game now. There'll be plenty of content from myself. Maybe. You
think we're going to beat playoff chasing Middlesbrough away from home?
Jack Wilshere, mate, taking us up.
Wilshere's been our assistant coach, Jack, the whole time. Do you really think we're going to beat Middlesbrough away when more than half our squad are on the beach, checked out, or don't want to be here, and can't even be asked to clap twice for the fans?
Have you noticed how this man has been criticising me for the last hour and 2 minutes for standard slipping?
Middlesbrough's always been tough, to be fair.
Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Take care.
Cheers, everyone. OTBC.